Hey, welcome to CineMike. For this episode I'm going to review Baby Driver, the latest film from Edgar Wright, the man behind huge cult hits like Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, The World's End, and Scott Pilgrim. What makes him one of the greats is that you always know when you're watching one of his movies. It's his style and energy, the way that he edits through a sequence that especially stands out. Think of a traditional scene that shows a character going about their day and then throw it into right gear. He recognizes the essential elements to focus on and then cuts out the excess weight, something that a lot of filmmakers have trouble doing. He's a true auteur in that way. He can make the most mundane and dull moments as exciting as an action sequence. So the idea of him applying that energy to an action thriller is pretty exciting, especially for fans that felt he was robbed of that chance on Ant-Man. He was that film's original director, but was dropped over creative differences, meaning that he was probably planning something way more interesting for the Marvel character than what we got. On a side note, I really did enjoy Ant-Man, but I would have loved to have seen the Edgar Wright version. So, did he apply his signature style and energy to Baby Driver? I'd say yes for the most part. Right from the start, he presents a bank robbery, something we've seen plenty before in movies, but he puts his own spin on it. Rather than show the robbery, he instead holds our attention on the film's title character, Baby, who is blasting music and treating the car like his own personal music studio. You really get a sense of Baby's detachment from the actual theft, and he really doesn't even come alive until the task falls on him to be the getaway driver. I do feel that Baby being the best getaway driver falls into question in that sometimes he draws way more attention in his methods. That said, the chases were simple in comparison to some of the more grandiose ones in our modern age. They're a bit of a throwback in their style, but man were they pretty exciting. It's a ballet of movement as Baby moves the car like a dancer to the music. Music, by the way, plays a pretty big role in this movie if you couldn't tell by the previews. Baby's playlist features a broad range of artists, from Simon & Garfunkel to T-Rex to Queen to Danger Mouse. There's a song playing through almost every scene in this movie. It's used very effectively to show how Baby processes the world around him. He chooses to drown out most of it and to exist in his own bubble. This is mostly because of a constant ringing in his ears due to a car accident that resulted in a personal tragedy for him in his youth. Baby doesn't truly let anyone in, that is until a young waitress makes the effort to see him as something more than just a tool. This relationship represents the hope for escape, as Baby wants nothing more than to get out of his current situation. As conflict grows between him and the group of thieves that he works for, he becomes more desperate to start a new life with her. However, his employer, Kevin Spacey's character Doc, isn't going to let his good luck charm go that easy. If Baby wants out, then he's going to have to get his hands dirty. The film sports a very solid cast, led by Ansel Elgort, who plays Baby. He's a relative newcomer still. He certainly showed that he can pull off romance and drama from Fault in Our Stars, but he's not the first person you'd think of as an action star. However, he proves just right for this character. The role demanded a lot of physicality because Baby's movements are usually in sync to the music that he's listening to. There's this impressive one-take tracking shot following him as he dances through the streets to get coffee for his group. I can only imagine how much rehearsal that took. Another challenge to playing the character is that he has to convey a lot of emotions, but because Baby is the quiet type, he has to do most of it in actions and expressions. On top of that, he somehow finds a way to make it all fun to watch. Like, there's this one scene where Jon Bernthal's character keeps taking Baby's sunglasses, but Baby just keeps whipping out spares. He's very OCD about things like that. Like, he won't start the car up after a robbery until his music's at a certain point in the song. Ansel Elgort is great in this, and this movie could very easily open a lot of doors for him, so I'm interested to see where his acting career goes from here. There is a lot to praise about this movie, but I will say that I had more mixed feelings about certain things than I expected. It's mostly good stuff, but I have some small issues here and there. Like his relationship to Deborah, who's played by Lily James. It's fun. They're both music lovers, they keep trying to find songs with their names in the lyrics. I will say though that their bonding felt a bit too easy and slightly artificial to me. It's kind of like the fantasy version of how you'd like a conversation with your crush to go. True, they couldn't take too much screen time on it, but I always prefer when things feel more natural, and usually that takes more time. The movie's unique pacing is one of its strengths, but it does occasionally make interactions with characters feel slightly off. Now, let's look at the colorful team of criminals that Baby has to work with. Doc likes to mix up his groups every job, so some cast members switch and change. For instance, you have Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers popping in for one sequence. And I'm sorry to disappoint all of you Jon Bernthal fans out there, but the Punisher is barely in this. I felt a little disappointed in this because I thought that what little we did see of his interaction with Baby was interesting to watch. The questionable thing to me, though, was that Jamie Foxx comes into the movie shortly after, and he plays a very similar character to Bernthal. Both of them seem to distrust Baby's innocence, and both come off as dangerous loose cannons. When two characters represent the same thing in a story, then it usually makes more sense to condense them into one character. Now, don't get me wrong, Jamie Foxx does a good job playing a threatening antagonist, but it just feels that he and Bernthal cancel each other out because they're so similar. Next up is the married couple Darling and Buddy, played by Isa Gonzalez and John Hamm. Aside from Baby's foster father Joseph, Hamm is one of the few characters in the movie who seems to sympathize and show some kindness to Baby. However, it's also made clear that he is someone that you never want to cross, especially when it comes to how protective he is over his wife. I enjoyed Hamm's duality and his big brother attitude towards Baby, but I do feel that he becomes a little less interesting in the third act of the movie. I understand his motivations, but he becomes a bit more one-dimensional than I would have liked. Then finally, we come to the great Kevin Spacey as Doc, the brains behind these heists and the man holding Baby's leash. Spacey has always been one of my favorite actors, and he doesn't disappoint here. That said, though, his character becomes one of the more confusing ones for me in this movie. He's someone that seems established to be one thing. He's a cold, calculating manipulator that is using Baby under the guise of being a mentor figure. I mean, this is a guy who uses his young nephew to gather intel for jobs. Funny moment, by the way, but then near the end of the movie, Doc develops in a way that seems out of character from what was set up in my mind. I think they could have done more to make his arc feel more believable. I will admit that I got really caught up in this movie's advertising. The previews and TV spots kept pushing how great this movie is by slapping critical praise all over them. The buzz was strong, and it felt like this movie was being played up to be one of the best ones of the year. So I think that my expectations were high, which may have hurt it just slightly for me. The movie is still undoubtedly good. It's fun, the impressive stunts and choreography make the action really exciting, and I was glad to see that most of it was performed for real. I'm always a fan of practical stunts. Tension is built really well, there are some brutal and violent moments that are shocking. I like how it's a bit old school in its execution. The directing style is slick and fits the standards of what is expected from Edgar Wright. He also gets in some great moments of humor. The cast is all great, and it has a lot going for it. However, for all of its cool style, the story is a bit generic. Yeah, Wright's presentation helps make it feel fresh, but certain elements are a bit too familiar. There are also some character and narrative turns that I think could have been handled a little better. Some of the middle section dragged slightly, and another little complaint is that there's this one character that keeps coming back the way a killer does in a slasher horror movie. I mean, having a bad guy come back for one last attack is one thing, but they have this one character return several times. Just a couple times too many. At the end of the day, the issues that I have aren't major, but they're just enough to make me feel that the movie didn't completely realize its full potential. Putting my expectations to the side, though, I did overall really enjoy Baby Driver. It's still definitely a good way to spend your time, and I do recommend that you all check it out. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the very best that this movie could be for me, I would give Baby Driver an 8. And that about covers it. Click like if you enjoyed this video, and please feel free to leave a comment below. Tell me if you agree or disagree, and I of course welcome you to subscribe to the channel. So until next time, this is Mike, signing off.